Speaking of journeys, I have to ask you about SpaceX. I mean, the journey that all of humanity is on.
Seriously, that is talk about a journey. That is incredible.
It's an interesting moment in the history of humanity
Hmm.
that perhaps, hopefully, will become a multiplanetary species. But SpaceX is also a company. You invested in SpaceX. You were side by side with Elon through the highs and the lows, through the lows and the highs.
Sure.
So, what were some memorable challenges? What were some low points
Sure, I can
from the
answer
history
that.
of SpaceX?
One of the hardest times in SpaceX was we were in the mid Pacific in Kwajalein, and my brother had sold PayPal. He'd done well financially, but in the rocket world, that money goes away really quickly. And we were in this military base in Kwajalein, and I think it was the second rocket that blew up. I'm not sure, but uh, we didn't have infinite resources. I certainly didn't have the resources. I mean, I'm there to support brotherly support, but so every rocket launch was like do or die, and the first one had blown up, and so the second one, I think it was the second one, blew up, and it was it was so depressing. It was just like, oh, and there's nowhere to go. There's no distraction. You're on this military base. You don't really socialize. So it's just we were all together, and I'd gotten to know. For me, I'm not part of the team. Right? I'm just there for emotional support or whatever because it's cool. And so I got to know a couple of people locally, and got to know this one guy who had a mobile home. Best view in the world, but it's just a mobile home next with a patch of grass next to it. And I was just desperate to find food that wasn't from the cafeteria because it's the worst food you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so he showed. I met him, and he showed me this little tiny little grocery store which had a few things like canned tomatoes and not. This is again, you're middle of nowhere. It's just nothing fresh. And I made this dish that was kind of a version of like an Italian version of chili. Just baked beans and uh, t- sweating onions and then tomatoes, and it was a big pot of food because it's a group of people. We didn't even have a table, and we just put the big pot in the middle, and we had our little paper plates, and took a scoop as we needed it. And it was really the gathering place of like food brings people together in the most difficult times. And it was one of my favorite memories because I was able to bring my gift to this group of incredible people that their hearts were broken, and to sit there and share a meal and feel the life kind of come back into us. And by the end of the night, we're actually having a good time.
What a fascinating contrast of rockets kind of representing the peak accomplishment of human beings as a society, and then returning to the thing that is the foundation of human society, which is that communal
A
experience.
communal, vulnerable connection, like we mentioned vulnerability earlier, the most vulnerable place, actually,
Yeah.
that's when you have some of your most beautiful meals.
Yeah, the descendants of apes gathering around some baked beans
Right.
after watching a rocket explode.
Yeah.